What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our favorite daily fantasy picks for week 1 of the NFL season, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Let us hear it in the comments section. Do you agree, disagree? If you have any questions, let us hear them. We will do our best to answer them all. And lastly, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Now, today we're going to be using PrizePicks, our DFS site of choice. And in fact, if you sign up today using promo code ADP, well, you'll get a 100% deposit match for up to $100. So take advantage of that now. Link is in the description. But look, if you guys aren't familiar with PrizePicks, super simple, super convenient to use. When you check out the website here, just go to the how-to. Again, super basic in terms of getting started. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players from their board and then just pick the over-under on the projected fantasy score or the single stat line because, yes, that's right. It allows you to combine single stat DFS and then fantasy scoring, which is based on full PPR. So great way to do it. If you just want to look at fantasy side of it, you can do that. If you want to do just the single stat lines, you can do that. If you want to combine it, you can do that as well. And then from there, just choose a flex play or power play. With a flex play, you can miss one of those player props and still win. Obviously, it is the safer option, so you get something. With a power play, you have to get all your picks correct to win. And obviously, you get a little bit more bang for your buck there. And we'll show you guys what that looks like here once we get into it. But look, you've got a ton of player prop bets here from rushing yards, passing yards, receiving yards. All these are updated as the week progresses. So a ton of choices. And today specifically, we're going to take you through our top 10 favorite player props. We kick off our picks with Dak Prescott and his rushing yard total for that Dallas-Tampa Bay game. Currently set at 12.5 rushing yards here. I'm going to be taking the over. The logic being, look, I understand some people might be a little bit tentative. The Buccaneers have a great run defense, and Dak Prescott coming off a major injury, so maybe a little bit hesitant to run the football. But let's not pretend like he's not capable of being a rushing quarterback. He definitely still is, and I would say that the Bucs are going to be prioritized with somebody like Ezekiel Elliott. On top of that, right now, the Cowboys, they've got a good offensive line, but they're dealing with some COVID issues, which might mean that in scenarios where Dak Prescott has to wait in the pocket, throw the football, if that pocket collapses, he's going to rely on his feet. And I think there's going to be scenarios where he just takes off running. Getting to that 12.5 rushing yard total doesn't seem like that high of a number in my opinion. I think he could easily get over 20 rushing yards. So for that reason, I would take the over on this one. Not really touching any of the other running backs in this situation, though. A little bit more unpredictable. Scrolling down, though, we get to Zach Moss, 47.5 rushing yards. I would take the under here. The logic being, look, the Bills are playing the Steelers, one of the best defenses in the NFL. But more importantly, it's like we've forgotten the Bills have a running back by committee. It's Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. And neither one of those guys really stepped up in the preseason to claim the starting running back position. So they're going to continue to vulture each other. And this is a game where let's not forget about Josh Allen. He also takes away opportunities from both of these running backs. So for that reason, the Buffalo Bills rushing attack, not really a strong suit of their offense. So I would be fading Zach Moss here. Continuing on, we get down to DeAndre Swift, 58.5 rushing yards. I think that's a little bit too high. And again, the Lions playing the 49ers, a pretty good defense that's a lot healthier than it was last season. But Swift, not one of those pure runners. He's more of a PPR suited running back. So this total, I think it's a little bit too high, and the Lions, the defense, not all that great. So it could definitely be a situation where Swift is more used as that pass catcher. But more importantly here, Swift has been dealing with a groin injury for pretty much the entirety of the preseason, camp as well, missed a lot of practice, if not all of it, and his status a little bit up in the air. If he does play, I think there's a very real chance he is limited here. And with what coaches have said about DeAndre Swift and more importantly, Jamal Williams and his usage, I think that DeAndre Swift might struggle to get a full workload here, and for that reason, I am fading him in this matchup. And one of the last guys I want to look at here in terms of rush total is James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 72.5 rushing yards. I would take the over here personally because this is a very friendly matchup for the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Houston Texans, who honestly might be one of the worst teams from top to bottom, offensively, defensively, pretty much everywhere. Now, if Deshaun Watson plays in this game, then it might be a little bit different. Game flow might be a little bit different, but all signs point towards that not being the case. And I'm not really all that afraid of Tyrod Taylor leading the Houston Texans. I think that offense takes a big step back. And defensively, again, the Houston Texans aren't all that great. I think James Robinson without Travis Etienne is going to get a lot of usage. Not all that worried about Carlos Hyde. Robinson is the main rusher. And the Jaguars have the ability to score a lot of points versus this defense. In fact, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, period. And if the game progresses the way, I anticipate, well, James Robinson is going to have a lot of opportunities and the Jaguars are going to want to run that clock down. So over 72.5 rushing yards definitely seems doable. But let's switch from rushing yards here and look at receiving yards, some of these wide receivers, maybe even some of these running backs. But I want to kick it off here with Antonio Brown of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he is an absolute smash of a play at the over 45.5 receiving yard total because I've been saying this all season long. The Bucs have a trio of wide receivers in Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown, and they essentially all have the same ceiling, the same floor. Last season, when they were all playing together, they were putting up very similar stat lines. Like the biggest differential was the touchdowns, but more or less they were averaging like 5-6 receptions per game for between 50 to 70 yards. And considering the upside is very, very similar versus a suspect Dallas defense, I mean, look at Mike Evans, look at Chris Godwin, look at Antonio Brown, who by far has, the best total. Like Antonio Brown should be at least 50 yards, or he should be very much so on par with Evans and Godwin in terms of yards. So I think this is an absolute steal here for the Tampa Bay pass catcher and Antonio Brown. That's kind of being the forgotten man, but still definitely very, very talented. Moving on, I also want to look at Deebo Samuel for the 49ers, 56.5 receiving yards. I'd take the over here versus, again, a Detroit Lions defense that's not all that great. But the primary reason for me is the status of one Brandon Ayuk, his teammate, who dealing with a hamstring injury. He is questionable. And if that's the case, Deebo Samuel is by far and away the top wide receiver for the 49ers in a game that they could potentially score a lot of points. Yes, George Kittle is still there, but Deebo Samuel is that deep threat down the field that I think, he has the ability in 1-2 plays to get over 50 receiving yards without Brandon Ayuk being there. I think Deebo Samuel almost becomes a lock. And then also here, a couple other guys, Michael Pittman, 56.5 receiving yards for the Colts. I'm also going to bring him up in terms of fantasy performance and probably prefer him on that side of things, but here also not a bad bet. 56.5 receiving yards versus the Seattle Seahawks, who defensively, they kind of struggled all season long. Without T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman is the top wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think that is tremendous, tremendous upside here, in my opinion. Michael Pittman is the number one wide receiver. Carson Wentz trending towards playing. Pittman showed last season that he could play, and I think he's going to get a lot of volume here. So I would be taking the over in that regard. Moving on here now, let's look at some of these fantasy score potential over-unders, and we'll begin with Ronald Jones, who at only 8 points seems like an absolute bargain. I would be taking the over here as well because fact of the matter is the Bucs, again, playing a average Dallas Cowboys defense probably will have a lot of scoring opportunities, and Ronald Jones is the goal line running back. One touchdown gets him 6 points here. This is full PPR scoring. Not that Ronald Jones is really that much of a pass catcher, but if he gets one touchdown, then he just needs 20 yards. Like, I think that's completely doable in a game script where the Bucks go up big. Ronald Jones is going to get a lot of usage. So he's somebody that I really like to hit that over number from that perspective. Continuing to scroll down, let's look at some of these other choices because there are a lot of them here. I want to go down to Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings, 21.5 points. Dalvin Cook is one of the top running backs in the NFL. He can do it on the ground. He can do it through the air. And this is a great matchup versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Dalvin Cook can be the highest scoring running back on the week, in all honesty. And in a game plan where the Vikings are a run-first team versus a suspect defense, 21.5 points, you just get a touchdown in there. I think he can get over 100 yards rushing, about 4-5 receptions from 30, 40 yards with a touchdown. That'll get the job done. So I would go the over here. Dalvin Cook is one of my favorite plays at the running back position this week. And then finally, I want to scroll down to Zach Wilson, quarterback for the New York Jets. Wilson is a guy that obviously I think is going to be a little bit underrated because he is a rookie. He's on the Jets. That's probably a big part of it too. But 17.5 points for a quarterback, not all that much. And trust me when I tell you, this Carolina defense, not all that special. It can be had. And I think this will actually be one of the higher scoring games of the week. I really think that the wide receivers are going to have a lot of success for the Jets, and that Zach Wilson could throw for like over 300 yards in this game. The rushing attack, not quite established there for the Jets, in my opinion. So Zach Wilson, 17.5 points. He could absolutely, get 2 touchdowns, over 250 yards. So I think this is a great potential value here versus a Panthers team that's still pretty young, pretty developing, and pretty inconsistent defensively. So I would take the over there. But with that, we wrap it up. And hopefully you guys are able to take advantage of some of these picks. But go to Prize Picks for yourself and check out all of these potential options. There's going to be a lot of them out there, more than the ones that we just covered. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Again, sign up for Prize Picks. Let us hear it in the comment section whether you agreed, disagreed. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.